So today, how to get clients seeking you out to be their agent. All agents desire this. Few ever actually get to that point. And if you want the step-by-step on how to do that without spending a fortune or taking a decade to do it, you are in the right place.
Yes, we're going to dive into this. And, I don't think the awareness, like a lot of agents maybe don't even have the awareness that this is something they desire. I had a mentor early on in the business tell me, he said, Mike, go home, have a glass of wine, and just think how you want your business to look. You know what I mean? He was talking about a strategy, positioning, and essentially he was telling me to daydream. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And if you think about like the top agent in your market, if you're not it, and you imagine for a second what it'd be like to be them, right? They have business coming to them on a regular basis, and they're not concerned about what business is going to come to them tomorrow because they have systems in place, but they also have, what's the specific term where you have enough of an adoption rate, critical mass. They have this critical mass that allows them to just be a known entity in the market, which attracts business. And so people naturally reach out and call them to list their home, to buy a home, right? And how does that feel? How does that feel? How can you do that if you don't have that already? That's what we're going to dive into. And I love the without taking 10 years to do it, because they say on average, most agents don't start making any real money in the business until 8 years. And I don't know about you, but you might as well go be a doctor if you're going to spend 8 years waiting to go make some money. You know what I mean? Like, or an attorney. I mean, something, because that's just far too long. And the money that they're talking about isn't even a great deal. I mean, they're talking about like $250,000, like it takes that long to get to that point. It doesn't. You can collapse time if you got the right strategy. So we're going to dive into that today, even though that was a wordy title.
It was.
Yeah.
But it was going to be like 6 paragraphs, and we condensed it down to 2 very long sentences. But I think too, I see this all the time. Like, this is probably the most common complaint that I see from real estate agents is like, you have someone that a friend, a family, whatever, and you see them post about the new home that they just bought, or the move that they just made, and they just sold their house, and you feel personally offended that they did not reach out to you, right? Like,
right. A lot of people feel like that.
Yeah, like the most common thing that just will just piss you off behind or beyond belief.
Right. I'm not going to that guy's barbecue ever again.
Right.
Forget him. Off the Christmas list.
Honey, take them off the list. They're not $2.25 for us this year, right? Like, personally offended, but I truly believe like that will always really be there, but it affects you way less when you just have business coming to you naturally from people you don't know, but you expect you have that expectation that people are going to come in each month the same way that you have that with people that you actually have the personal relationship with. And it's just about, because it's 2020 and there's all kinds of ways of creating relationships with people without actually having to spend time with them face to face, that you can do that in a way that collapses time. Because before, the only way to do that was to become this big giant celebrity that was spending a ton of money on marketing everywhere and hitting them from every big channel that was out there.
But most of the time they don't track. So like the old Mark Twain saying, I know half of my marketing is wasted, I just don't know which half. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. So like they're doing it to do it because they've done it. And so far, like this hodgepodge Frankenstein, model that they have put together that they couldn't reproduce to save their life, just kind of all works, and they don't know why. They couldn't teach it. They couldn't put it in a step-by-step coaching program, right? Because they don't freaking know most of the time. Now, I'm not saying everybody. There are a lot of bad to the bone agents out there that know specifically, but for the most part, in most markets that I see, when I look at the advertisement of, say, a billboard or even a TV commercial, there's no tracking component to it. There's no direct response tracking component to where the agent actually knows, this is working, right? And a lot of times the call to action is wrong. Like there's just so many things I see, and I'm like, man, that agent is actually, they put up some numbers. So this is crazy for them to not have this information. So let's dive into it, Jake. I mean, I think the first thing that people desire in the real estate space is to be known. Like I want to be known as the go-to agent in my market. I want to be known as an expert in my field. That way I don't have those situations where, my friend from church, for example, goes and buys from somebody else, and then I find out about it on their newsfeed on Facebook. They don't even tell me. A lot of that really is not necessarily just in being known. It's about being known for the right thing, right? So like what that tells me when that happens is that agent is not clearly communicating to the marketplace the benefit of doing business with them above all other options. So like when I would have that situation happen, which inevitably can happen because real estate is an emotional purchase a lot of times. If they go to an open house or something and they love the house and their wife's like, honey, and there's a bunch of, would-be buyers in there, they might freak out and write an offer, in which case you just be gracious about it. Like, hey, congratulations, there's plenty to go around. I wish you would have gotten me involved because I probably could have saved you some money or at least negotiated in that pool table I saw. I know you like pool. Now you're going to have to buy a pool table. I'm just joking, but you know what I mean? Like you get a little dig in there anyway. It's all about the value, not being clear in articulating the value to the marketplace on a consistent basis. And what I've seen in the past, like agents will go to do that for a short amount of time. You know what I mean? Like, I tried, for example, the guaranteed sale program. It didn't work. How long did you try it for? Because it took me like years to get some traction to where that's what I was known for. Lucky for me, that's not how I made my money, right? People didn't come to me for that. They were coming to me through the internet, which we were in a vacation market while they were sitting at work in St. Louis or Kansas City or what have you, Chicago, Omaha, Des Moines. And that was how I consistently generated the business. But let's go into really the three pillars that you and I have been discussing.
Yes.
I think you articulate that well.
Yes. So the three pillars, and this is step by step, exactly how to do this in the most simplistic way that I've ever been able to like communicate this. And it's hard because each one I want to dive really deep. But first,
it's hard for you because you talk a lot of times like what's that term?
Esoteric.
Yeah.
Technobabble. Technobabble is my first language. So first pillar, lead generation, right?
Yep.
So it has to be in place. The other two could be in place, but if you don't have the lead generation, it doesn't really matter. The second part is your brand, your position, right? And this is key of what you were just talking about, of making this about the consumer and not about you, right? Like
100%. If it's not about the consumer, they're not going to care. You know what I mean? Like if you're just going to be like, oh, I'm number one, or oh, I'm this, or oh, I'm that. If it's something about you, they're not going to care. How does that translate into a benefit for them to do business with you?
Exactly.
That's the goal. And listen, if you're not really about that, you don't like unique selling propositions, you can do like this guy did.
Awesome.
Do that. The
condo baby.
I'm joking. I saw that sign. I had to take a picture of it.
The billboards from what movie is that?
I Love You, Man. Peter Clavin.
Yes, Peter Clavin. Licensed
secret agent. He's only secret to his customers. They don't know about
everything that I turns to sold.
Oh, don't go there. I got a friend that uses that one. But in all seriousness, like if you don't like unique selling propositions, which are specific benefits that are the highest promise you can make and yet keep to the consumer, then at a minimum, the fallback should be that you're an absolute expert in your field for that market, right?
Correct. Yep.
So if those things turn you off or they sound like not like you and who you are, then how do you position yourself as an expert, somebody who is going to do the best possible job for the consumer?
Yes. Right. Well, like for buyer billboards that we do, like a lot of them will say something like, be the first one to know or beat other buyers to the newest listings, that kind of stuff. Yep. Like things that have to do with them and what they desire. You know what I mean? So That's the second one. The third one is visibility, reach, right? Like how, and it's kind of combining the first two. So how do you take the lead generation that you're doing, right, and the brand, and get them to see that from as many different channels as possible, right? And so this includes the good old telemarketing, because that is marketing, right? So the contacting of them to be able to actually talk to them, the eyeballs of where they were going at. So the old school ways were like, newspaper, magazines, like that used to be
What do you mean newspaper, magazines? I'm helping you get this out and communicate it clearly.
So, that's where people spent their time, right? That's where their eyeballs would go. So if you were going to get in front of them, you had to go to places that they were, right? You used to, 20 years ago, sit around the kitchen table in the morning and the newspaper was getting passed around. Now it's 4 people eating breakfast together, if that even happens, but they're all on their phones, right? So it's 2020. So where do people spend most of their time and most of their eyeballs? On these devices, right? So which apps specifically? Facebook, Instagram, a lot of the time, right? Email, text messages. So you're hitting them from all those different places, being able to get the mind share, right? And put your brand in front of their eyes, and magic starts to happen, right? Especially when you have the right positioning.
Well, and I think that you glossed over the most important component, which is what really drove my success, and that's the lead gen side at first, right? So you got to have the audience, is what we always prescribe, to be able to get in front of these people, because you don't want to do it today. It's just so costly to do it the old-fashioned way. And honestly, like the agents that I've dealt with over the years generally aren't going to have the delayed gratification for that strategy to work, right? So like if you were just, maybe a first, second, third year in the business, you're kind of making a decent amount of money, and all of a sudden you wanted to put up a billboard because you thought that was going to help. I think you'd be very disappointed to find that like no business came from it, right? Especially in the first month, in the entirety of it. I mean, like the whole year. So I think a lot of the marketing still today that agents do like that, it's very ego driven and not purposeful as far as the strategy or intent. It's to make them feel better. And, I've talked about the ego side, like, when you wade through a tremendous amount of potential rejection on a regular basis, a side effect is having a big ego, because it's part of your thick skin, and you want to project an image that's larger than life, so that you kind of posture maybe even a little high roll on the customer, so that they don't bust you up about your commission. They don't bust you up about little things. They treat you like more of a professional. But what we're saying is there's a very specific process that you can use that costs less money, takes less time, to be able to achieve the same net effect. And specifically, it starts with the ability to have lead generation, because that's gathering up the people in your marketplace that have raised their hand, taken the time to identify themselves to you by filling out a form or sending an email, what have you, that say, hey, I'm over here and I'm interested in real estate in blank city, blank town, blank neighborhood. Can you help me? Right? Because after that point, what you want to do is have that plan in place to build your brand. And the building of a brand has to be something that's premeditated. All celebrity is crafted. And I think that escapes a lot of people, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
nobody just wakes up one day.
You're right. Public paid a lot of money in Hollywood and for sports icons and stuff. Like, they are very carefully crafted. Like what they say in interviews, like they go through everything to be able to make sure, and because they have this persona that's created, right? Like,
they have a team of people that are curating this for them.
Exactly, right? Like Jordan, right? Like, I don't know who Jordan's was, but like what was portrayed during his high years was a little bit different than what we saw in like The Last Dance, right? So that's just the nature of the beast of celebrity, right? Like it's what you want them to see, not necessarily what is. But just to
decide what that's going to be. Because here's the thing: you thinking that you have that out there means that you probably don't. And if you don't, then people are going to fill that gap in. They're going to make their own determination. And, you know, the positioning that you have becomes your position, is the saying. So the lack of positioning becomes your position. You're just another aberration. You know what I mean? You're like
Exactly.
the generic version, like the Shasta soda, you know, and I hate to be so, you know, direct about that, but it's true. It's true. And I had to realize that. I was like, man, I'm like, you know,
right,
second, third, fifth, 500th choice. You know what I mean? Like in the marketplace,
just
people don't think
yeah,
me when they think about real estate.
Roll the dice. And I always have made the example, because here in the DFW area, there's a Keller Williams office down the street on Old Preston Road that has like 300 and some odd agents that work out of it, right? Wow. And if I was just a person that walked in, right, and was like, I need a real estate agent, I could pick cards and I could get someone that has been licensed for like a few weeks. Or I could pick like Cindy O'Gorman, who dominates Frisco and sells 300 houses a year and has for the last decade, right? Like, because I actually live here, I would actually look around and I'd be able to be like, oh, Cindy O'Gorman, I know her. Like, I recognize that name. I should probably go with them, right? Like, yeah. But that's what the consumers have, you know, whether they know it or not, right? They have a ridiculous amount of options.
Right? Incumbents usually get voted in for a second, third, fourth, whatever term. It's because people are like, oh yeah, who? Oh, I know that name, right? You remember the Eddie Murphy movie where he like took the name of like the previous politician? Yeah, and they're like, man, that was really slick when he got there. You know, I mean, they're congratulating, but it's not untrue in the mind of the consumer. You know, the saying that I have is like, we've been talking about if you were to call every single one of your own leads, which I did, right? Versus having the leads appointment with you via either technology or someone else's human interaction, like the positioning is so much different. So if in the analogy that I've been given to us internally is like, if you were to fill out some kind of a form to get information about personal injury if you just got in a car accident, and then all of a sudden you got like 20 attorneys calling you incessantly, right? And you talk to one, like you're going to feel differently about that person versus the known entity that's on the billboard in your marketplace, especially if they cost the same price. Like, who are you going to do business with, right? Because personal injury attorneys usually have like a percentage of whatever they win you, right? They get. So, you know, I mean, if it's the same percentage, like you're probably going to go with the one that is the known entity in your mind. And what we're prescribing specifically is you can do that faster than ever through technology. You can do that through retargeting ads. You can do that through blogging, through vlogging, through videos, through email, through text message, right? Through positioning yourself. And probably what we should do is like we were discussing yesterday, put together a step-by-step how to do it for the people that maybe can't have us do it for them yet because they haven't got it. You know, there was some lady that had chimed in on one of our ads or videos or something. She's like, I just don't have the money. And I was like, man, that means she really wants it. And I understand that. I feel for her. My pushback is like, look, if you're going to go into business, you got to have some capital. You know, it's not a job like most agents when they first get licensed think. They're like, oh, I have a real estate license, so now I'm going to make all this money. Nah, you're an independent entrepreneur. I mean, they call you an independent contractor for a reason, because it's up to you now, unless you get on a team or join some kind of an organization that has a plan for you. And even if you do, I would be very curious prior to the track record. You know what I mean? Like, what's the success rate? Yeah, unless you want to. There are things popping up now that will give you a job, but it limits your income, right? Like Redfin, right? So like they'll give you a salary. Yeah.
Right. Which for people can be the right choice, but like most people, and this is just like who we are the most helpful for are the people that are like you were when you came into the business, right? It was like, hey, I'm going to make $100,000. Then you made $100,000. You're like, ooh, what?
That worked that easy. I'm going to try $1 million.
Right. What do people make $1 million? Let's do $1 million. You know what I mean? Like, why not? So if they can do it, I can do it. And so everybody follows the exact same blueprint though. And the first pillar is lead generation for a reason, because it is the most important, because this is probably one of the mistakes that I see sometimes when people are so conscious of their brand. They're worried about their color scheme and how their website looks and their business cards. And they're so intentional with that, which is important, right? Your brand is very, very important. I don't disagree. But if you do not have anybody to show that brand to and get visibility, the results are very meh. You're not going to have
It's disappointing. I mean, I've told the stories. I did that too. You know what I mean? Like I create a logo, I put up a billboard.
Right. I did such a good job for my clients. Like,
ring off the hook.
I am who you should go with, and why is no one coming to me?
Nobody cares.
Yeah,
they don't care about you, and why should they? You know what I mean? Like, you only are caring about them for, your own selfish interest initially until maybe you get to know them. So how do you change it? How do you shift that, right? And it's through positioning and it's through marketing. We keep telling everybody the business that you're in as an agent is the business of marketing. Like, I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that over and over and over and over and over again. Yeah, because it's just the truth. I was like trying to figure out what's the number one problem that agents have that they don't know that they have. That's it. Like, you guys think you're in the business of real estate. You're in the business of marketing. And so you have to start to get purposeful on your marketing. You have to start to get a strategy in place. And what we're trying to tell you is it doesn't have to be like you see in order to get the results and effect that you desire, which is to be the known entity, which is to have the fish essentially jump in your boat and come to you, right? Which is a really awesome feeling, especially when you have it happen so often that you can start to choose who you do business with, because you're not going to necessarily raise a price, which there are ways, right, to raise your price if it's less than some of the things. There's some elasticity in the real estate industry, but generally speaking, you're going to only be able to raise the bar of who you're going to do business with. And you in order to do that, you have to have more people to do business with than you can serve. Once you hit that, life is really good.
Yeah,
life is really good.
And so to circle back here, the way that you constructed your business, the way that, like Tracy and Jason in Atlanta, the way that if you're watching this, think of the top person in your market who comes to mind, right? Whether that's true or not, they are probably in the top 10 at least, if you're thinking of them off the top of your mind. What have they done that you're not doing? Right? What has been constructed, and if you nail it down, it will fall into those three pillars, and it's all marketing, right?
Yeah. I called it crowbar on my way in. I just crowbar my way in. You know what I mean? Like, most people they'll talk to three people if they're considering a home remodel project, listing their house, different things of that nature. I was not in those top three. And so I had to try to get into that mind share of that top three. And that's what I did. I crowbarred my way in through different tactics that they never saw coming. To this day, like, people there still have no idea what I did or how I did it. They just think that it was, this guaranteed program gimmicky thing that he did. Like, that's why he had good business. That's why he became number one. That's why he blah, 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 blah. Nah, it wasn't that. It was good marketing, understanding the consumer's journey, what they actually wanted, which, in all honesty, I didn't just happen into that. I had to smack my head up against the pole a million times before I got to it. I just did it really fast because I'm going to smack my head up against the pole. You get to a point where you get sick of people taking advantage, wasting your time, seeing that they bought something, seeing them out with another agent after you showed them 50 houses, right? Like, that's no fun. No fun at all. So getting away from that as fast as possible is the goal. And once you get there, here's the thing. It takes much less to do everything that you're trying to do. I liken it to a rocket, right? Like, all of the energy is to get it out of the atmosphere. Once it's up there, it's just little, rockets that move it around, right?
Right, exactly. Just little.
It doesn't need all that force and thrust.
Exactly.
But you have to have that to get out of the atmosphere in the first place, which, again, like, if you're not going to spend a couple $100,000 this year in marketing, you have to start with what we're prescribing, which is people to pay attention to you. Those are called leads, right? It's not necessarily because you've got a lead that you're going to sell them a house immediately. You have to understand that they're in a process, they're in a journey, and they need to be categorized by where they're at in their process and journey. If they're moving in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, not this A lead, B lead, C lead garbage, right? If they're not going to move, if they're going to move in 3, 6, or 12 months, you need to treat them differently based on their timing, right? Based on, you have to have a different game plan there. If they're not going to be able to buy, they're not an A lead, a B lead, or a C lead. They're not even a 3, 6, 12 monther. They're like, hide that person or don't spend any time with that person if they can't buy, right? There's no need to categorize them like that. If you send them over to a credit repair or something, if you get a lead like that, like that's fine, but don't ever spend your time. You just put them on an automated system of nurturing and follow up for the rest of their duration. And what happens is that even builds on itself. They might send their grandmother to go buy a house from you or their father or whatever, This person was nice to help me.
For me personally, they're all just people, right? Like you can't really change timing, motivation, whatever. You can influence a little bit, but you can't really change it that much. So just file them into the category that they fit in, that you wouldn't be ashamed to tell them, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you were in my C category. Where'd you come from? Like you wouldn't ever tell that to them. But if you were like, hey, you're in my right?
Yeah.
That'd be all good. But like, could you imagine being like, oh, that's shocking. You called me. You were my C bucket. I don't ever get calls from C people.
What if they saw themselves in your CRM and it was like C? Like, what is that?
Oh, no. That reminds me of a very bad experience I had. Somebody in my phone with a very bad name. So for me personally, I just it's so unique of a perspective that I've had, just being able to be behind the scenes of so many of these people that are top agents across the country in different markets and whatever it may be. And like, it's so funny because, that rocket thruster, I think the fuel behind that so often is just this determination to learn and like figure it out and like this relentless pursuit. And so if you're watching stuff like this and you've gotten this far into it, like congratulations, you are probably in that category where you have that makeup, which is like one of the bare bones, like necessary things. Like if figuring it out and like, I don't care how I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to Kool-Aid man my way through a wall if I have to. Like, I'm just going to figure this thing out. That's when you're actively seeking out. And like, that's where these things like that's one thing that you've always said that I've resonated with. Like when the, I don't know where you got it from, but like when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right?
Yeah.
Like the answers are all there, and like it's 2020, so info is more readily available than ever, right? Like something like this that we're covering, usually before you'd have to pay a coach to be able to have to really dissect it. Like people might tease it a little bit in like a webinar to get you to buy something or something, but for the most part, information is more readily available than ever before. So it's out there. You just got to do it, right? Once you have this desire, it's just a matter of doing, not be afraid of failing, having some time go by, because this stuff doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't have to take a decade, but it still doesn't happen overnight. And you just got to be consistent with it.
Well, I think too, being clear on what to do in the right order is very helpful, because you can learn for the sake of learning, but learning to unbottleneck something in your business is much more effective, because as soon as you learn it, you get to implement it. If you just learn it to store the knowledge, I mean, imagine how many things you learned in school that you just couldn't recall today because you just think that knowledge, but it's not really something that was practical to use on a regular basis. For me, I'm the best student. You're going to tell me how to make some money. I'm front and center. I'm listening, right? And so I think to be clear, the place to start is, again, understanding that you need an audience to pay attention to you. Those are called leads today. The benefit of those leads is that you can sell them houses, right? Like that's where they're coming in. They're not coming in because, any other reason. This isn't a cold list, as we say in the marketing space. These are people who have raised their hand to you. You want to be able to generate and have as many of those people in your audience as you possibly can. And then what you want to do is you want to indoctrinate them with your positioning, with your brand, and segment them based on their timing when they're going to move, so that you can build yourself a pipeline. And when you build yourself a pipeline like that, what you'll be able to do is forecast your business. You'll know how much business you have in the next month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. And once you crack this, you're going to be able to turn your business up by turning up that dial of literally generating more leads. If you want to double your business, you just double your ad spend as long as the cost per lead stays the same, and you're there. I mean, it's that simple, right? And it's that process that you have to really iron out first, because everything else is not scalable. Everything else is just, a bit of luck, which I don't discount luck. Pretty much the story of my life. I lucked into the right information, right? I lucked into the people at the right time.
Yeah, I would push back a little bit there, where like you put yourself in position because you were a seeker, right? Like you were seeking the knowledge.
And
right?
even today, I'm still very, very coachable. I mean, like yesterday, I was on the coach, and I called you right after. Like, dude, here's what I learned. We need to do this, right? Yeah, so I think that's a characteristic that it is almost a skill. Like you can hone that no matter what your personality type is. You just got to humble yourself and go find the information, you know?
And so in times you've talked about this a lot, times where you felt like you've plateaued a little bit in your business life, like usually it's because you stop actively trying to learn and you're like, oh crap, that's what it was. I just got to start learning again, and it's not learning just to learn. And
I got off track with Corona, like in learning and having, some discipline. Yeah. And like we put out content. So it's funny because like I've been grasping at like kind of straws of some of the topics. And I'm like, well, that's because I'm like so depleted. Like I haven't refilled the tank with learning. You know what I mean? And again, I don't learn to learn. Like I learn, and then Jake, myself, a couple other team members, like we go on this pirate ship and we start to implement, and then when we hit pay dirt, we're like, man, this is really great. Here's what we learned. Let's talk about it. Let's tell everybody else.
And I think that part is key, is the action, right? Like you can have all these things in place, but you have to act, and you can't be afraid to fail. You can't be afraid for it not to work. You can't be afraid of any of that stuff, because luckily what you said too, like this was Moses, one of the first things that he ever taught me, good old Brian Moses. So for me, he was like, dude, the problem is a lot of times when you're just teaching agents, like they need someone to help them step it along, because the step-by-step part of it and what to do in what order is crucial, because that's where most people mess it up, because they go out and buy a billboard before they have any other lead generation going on, right? Which is catastrophic.
I was talking to him the other day who came in for a job for a different, not to be a real estate agent, and her thing was like she was going to go buy a bunch of swag. And I was like, well, I'm going to help you by talking to you about that. What's the outcome that you want to have happen? Well, I want to get my name out there. Well, then what? Well, then I can sell people houses. So like, what's the swag going to say? Well, my name and phone number. And then I sell real estate. I was like, what? There's a lot of choices for people, and personally, I don't think that's where I would spend the money. I mean, like, me, like we didn't have any market maker swag until like a couple years ago. I mean, there'd be like some one-off t-shirts you buy, or a hat here and there. But for the most part, like that wasn't something that I was willing to spend money on, because I couldn't get not an instant, but a return on investment from it. Right? Like it's just kind of ego driven. I mean, like we're in this building, we don't even have a sign up, because there's no reason.
We would never, ever just randomly send that out to people though, right? Like you would have to, right?
Cost me money. Giving them
now,
some of that's in their garbage or their junk cabinet at their house,
Right. If you
the other day, Jake, and I got like 15 water bottles from trade shows that I forgot about.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're a lead, right? Like if someone was a person that came in that you spoke to that was 12 months out, I could definitely get behind sending them some swag, right?
Absolutely. That's where you want to spend your time. That's where you want to spend your money. That's where you want to spend your energy, on people are going to do something in the real estate business because they told you they're going to buy in the next 12 months, in the next 6 months, in the next 3. They told
you, right? If you measure and that closing percentage went up, then that return on investment is whatever the difference was.
Very clear. Very clear. Let's wrap it up, brother. I think
we could literally do this for like an entire day. So
I agree 100%.
So in summary though, right? Step by step, got to start with lead generation. Otherwise your brand and how much visibility that brand has does not matter, because you don't have anybody to show it to. So you have to start. Exactly. Start with the lead generation. Have your brand be nothing about, well, it can be a little bit about you, but 98% about what it actually means to the consumer and what they get out of working with you, and create that brand. And then you have the visibility. So all the omni-channel, how many different ways that you can get that brand in front of those people that you've generated leads for.
Right, because that's the most efficient use of your money is to only spend it on the people who've already told you they're going to buy or sell in the near future, and you already started a relationship with. It's marketing by permission at that point,
Right.
Which again, like we could talk about this all day. Law of reciprocity. I mean, all those things. It's a wonderful thing when you know this down. Changes your life, changes your career, changes the life of your family, changes the life of the people that you'll hire as you build your business, and of course, obviously, the people you service. So, listen, if you want some help with these things, that's what we do here at Market Maker. What I want you to do is go to marketmakercall.com, watch a short video on how we help you with these things, starting with generating leads, then nurturing those leads in a way that builds your authority and status in the mind of those leads, ultimately deliver them to your calendar as an appointment so that you're positioned as a professional and these people are coming to you for help. It's a wonderful thing. It is exclusive. It's 1-800 per zip code, marketmakercall.com. Go check it out if you haven't already, and especially if you've made it this far onto this call.
Yeah, and if you're a current client, this is the most exciting part, is that this is happening, and it's repeatedly, without you lifting a finger, happening, and you will feel the effects sooner.
Absolutely. So, absolutely.
All right, man. So as we always say at Market Maker, you are always just one pre-positioned appointment away.
Every day from a commission, brother. Let's get some.
Sorry for the
Later.